Hi, everybody. Welcome to Mark's Backyard Birds. Excuse me. June Wild Bird Update, June 2025, of course. We've been doing these now. I have to kind of add those in there. So let's see who we've got joining in to give people time to jump on here. Sandy from Kankakee, Illinois. Welcome, Sandy. Bill from Greenville, Texas. By the way, Bill, I really loved your comment about on how did you discover Mark? That was really great. You and Ruth, definitely two of the very first of my birders out here in Missouri. Absolutely, we've had a lot of great birding adventures together. Oh, thank you, Sandy, reminding people if you would like and if you ever get a chance, definitely share and please subscribe. That's a great message to remember. Hello, Carrie, you're home and ready to go. Carrie, we had a very busy day at the store today. We've gotten wiped out the last 2 weeks. We've been very, very busy, and today and yesterday were the days of getting in several loads of stock and bird seed to replenish the store. So she was only supposed to work a little bit today. She worked a lot. So, all right, you guys there. I love it when you guys get to talking. Hi, Key from Houston, another real regular. Space Ghost, yes, I love that old show. From Northwest Arkansas. Ellie, welcome in, Ellie, right here and just down the road in Kansas City. Hello, Denise from Washington State. Thank you for joining us tonight. Rick from mid-Missouri. Hi, Rooster. All right. I like that name. Hello, Brian from just across the river over there in Leavenworth. Mike White from the hills of West Virginia. Welcome in. Ann Reynolds from Pike Creek, Delaware. That's the day they welcome in. I love seeing all the areas represented. Hello, Lisa. She says hi, Melanie.
Hi, I'm over here.
She is here. All right, let me do a real quick introduction. People are joining in now. We're giving people time to get on and join in with us. My name is Mark McKellar. As most of you know, I'm sure that by now, I am a wildlife biologist, and we are owners. My wife and I, Melanie, right over here, are owners of the Backyard Bird Center in Kansas City, Missouri. I've been birding as a biologist and as a hobbyist for now over 40 years. And one of the things I love to do most is to teach and spread the word about birds and the joy of it and getting people encouraged to go out and explore the natural world, especially when it comes to birds. And the YouTube has become an incredible avenue for me. And you guys are such great supporters of what we do here. And these lives, I love it, the chance to interact. And when we say interact, you see what's happening over here in the comment section. And that is as people are joining in, what I always ask is if you would comment and let us know where you're checking in from, and it just shows you from all over how widespread the birds are appeal to everybody. It doesn't matter what walk of life you are, what religion, what anything. People love birds. Very, very few people I've ever known that don't like birds. I know there are a silent majority out there that are scared of birds and things like that. But for the most part, birds bring us together, and they truly are our canary in the coal mine. They let us know what's going on in the world and the environment. So hopefully, if you would do like the channel, please give us a like, a share, and don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you know when the notifications I'm going to be on next. So, all right, let's see. Boy, I got to go back up a ways. I think you guys are jumping on fast. That's great. All right, let's see. Good evening, Geo. Boy, how do I pronounce that? Individuals, that is welcome in. All right, north of Philadelphia, welcome in, Bradley. Thank you for joining us. Hey, Rick in North Carolina. We're out celebrating. Well, congratulations on 42 years. Another week or two, in a couple of weeks, the wife and I are celebrating 38 this year.
I think so.
38 years, yeah. So absolutely welcome in and congratulations. Hi, Carrie. You guys are trading hellos. I love it. Kurt, welcome in right down the street. Maybe Kurt's at work. I don't know. I can't tell from that. Greetings from the Red Hills of South Georgia. A lot of clay down there. Absolutely. Isaac from south of San Diego. You are going to probably get the Southern Tip Award tonight. Yep, absolutely. All right. The highlights were this month have been getting to see. Oh, the kites are finally back in action. I keep checking on the kites that are usually down the street here from us. There's a dead tree they like to perch up in, and I have not seen them yet this year. I know they're usually one of the latter migrants that come in, but Ruth says she's had them south of the river here in Kansas City for 2 or 3 weeks. I don't know. I hope those birds haven't moved on because they nested really close here. From John from Ocala, Florida, if I can talk. Yes, another real rare. Welcome in. Yeah, Sophie decided not to join us down here tonight. She's doing her producer duties from upstairs, Sandy. From Jonesboro, Arkansas. Welcome in. Yes. I'm glad you called us live. Yeah, I know there's a lot of, to me, it's 7:00 here, in Kansas City. But yeah, you guys, especially out if you're located out west, I know that it's more like 5 your time. So I know it's hard maybe to catch us live. Out east, it'd be at 8:00. You guys, it's a little easier. But I'm glad you're able to catch us, Michaela. Hi, Ariana. I think you're in Arizona. Jeffrey Miller in the north coast of the Worlds of Fun. Oh, welcome in. You're not very far, right over there. Hey, Carol, Jay and Carol, rural Platte County. Is Fletcher? Oh, yeah, lots of babies. That's right. Yep, that's going to be the kickoff of what we talk about tonight. Hello, Ben Pettyjohn from Greenville, South Carolina. Wow. I haven't been there in many, many years. I went there a long, long time ago for a weekend. Let's see. Tons of hummingbirds out of here. Wow, that is good. Yep, this time of year, you may, I don't know if you have fledglings there already, because or just maybe you have a lot of hummingbirds. That's for sure. Hello, Alyssa from New Jersey, another real regular. Thanks for checking in. the Bluebirds are fans of these lives. I love it. Absolutely. We're going to be talking about them for sure. Remember drinking out of a feeder ring on his finger. That I saw some pictures of rings here lately, and I think you posted some Facebook on the, and Melanie will post a link to the Facebook community page. If you're not on that, we definitely encourage you to join that group, because a lot of the people that you're seeing names here are members of that group, and they're always posting wonderful pictures that they take from their yards. And there's questions, interactions, and things on that page. So Melanie will post that to the link if you're not a member of that group. When they start losing their feathers, I'm not sure when the molt pattern is on mockingbirds, but it would only lose 1 or 2 at a time. You can hardly tell it unless you see a shorter feather, because they can't do without many feathers at one time. So I am not exactly sure. I would, like I said, I think it's very, very gradual. Hi, Jim from Minneapolis. Recently, Southeast Kansas City has made a, yes, yeah, we had some bad storms here the last few days. Even my sister was checking in on me from North Carolina. We had a lot of rain, a lot of wind, and yes, birds hunker down, and they usually ride out storms like that. But really exposed nest and that kind of torrential rain can wash out. Now, remember, again, this is going to lead right into what we're talking about a lot tonight. Of course, is nesting, because June is the nesting month. The females tend to brood the eggs and brood the young, and rain and storms like that. But if it's too heavy and the nest does, especially in the wind, get blown down or get washed out, remember, birds lay eggs on command. So it really isn't catastrophic for them to lose a nest. especially in an area like here where the temperatures are so mild or favorable for nesting for the next 3 months, because they can quickly rebuild another nest and lay another batch of eggs and start sitting again. So yes, some of those nests could be lost in bad, really heavy rains, and also from wind, of course, like what we had. But they will build another nest and start nesting again. There's some birds that it's a really long process, and opposed to those birds that nest at the top of the world up in the edge of the Arctic Circle, they only have one shot at it. And if their nest gets destroyed, then of course they've lost their nesting for that season. So that's a sad thing. All right, love watching birds. Jules, okay. Much for say we're acting like them. It's a swallow. Oh God, that's funny. All right, Lou from Platte City, welcome in. All right, there's the link to the Facebook community group. Definitely check that out. Hugs from North Carolina. Most people know that Mel and I are from North Carolina, and we spent the first basic 30 years of our lives out there, and now we've been in Kansas City for like 33 now, kind of. So we've tipped the scale. We've actually lived longer in Missouri than we had growing up in North Carolina. All right, Gail Coleman, peace, right down the road. All right, a neighbor. Hi, Andrew from Cincinnati, Ohio, who has been sending me some really great videos and posting them of his Hummingbird cameras. He's got a lot of activity in his yard. When I get the female mockingbird mealworms, the male mockingbird chases her away from the food. I don't know why. And I don't know how you can tell a male from a female. The mockingbirds are not sexually dimorphic, so it's very hard to tell. But males are kind of aggressive. But part of that, I don't know if that's two males maybe, or the male or female. That's hard to know. Have you ever known tree swallows run bluebirds out of their nest box? Yes. They're fighting hard. Yes, you could. What you can do there, Mike, is put up 2 boxes. They don't compete for food resources. So tree swallows and bluebirds will nest really close together, within feet of each other with their boxes. But if there's only one box available to them, they will compete over the nest cavity itself. So if you've got tree swallows and bluebirds, it's a really good idea to put 2 bluebird boxes up pretty close together, because you can't put two bluebirds aren't going to nest that close, or 2 tree swallows are not going to nest that close together, but one of each can. See any nest in my yard, but that are bringing the young to learn how to feed. Yes, I've got some pictures today, or people are reporting lots of babies, and they're starting to come in. Yep, you've already had adults feeding baby orioles. That is really quick. Maybe that's for around here. I don't expect them for at least another 3 weeks or so before we start seeing baby orioles, but could be. I read somewhere that a chickadee only takes 2 calories a day. That seems really low. Yeah, I do not know that off the top of my head. I would have to research that a little bit, because caloric intake, I can't imagine it being that low. But hey, there's those guys out there that truly do the in-depth research. If they're published, to me, it's a matter of really reliable. I mean, if the information is coming from like Cornell Lab of Ornithology or any of the scientific publications about birds, but young beast at friend who brings nesting material under truck. Stuff. Yeah, you gotta, if that truck stays there in a long time, birds will try to utilize that for nesting. But okay, we're getting into a lot of the questions. That's some of these questions are going to relate to what we're talking about. So let's get into that. What's this? Oh, I got you. All right, so we're add to the stage. Okay, first thing I thought we should talk about, and it's because those generate, always this time of year is always a lot of questions, and that is hummingbirds. A lot of people, we talked about this on the last live that we did about the state of hummingbirds and other migrants coming in the area and how they were. A lot of people in the last week have kind of reported to me that, wait a minute, I just saw a hummingbird and I hadn't seen one all spring. And so it seems like maybe some of the hummingbirds are arriving late. I think a lot of birds, in some years arrive later. Every year is different. But what happens now? And I've had lots of questions about, oh my gosh, I had them and then they're gone. I had them gone. And I did a video about telling you, remember, it's the female's fault. This is a female ruby-throated, and it's up to her to decide if your yard is worthy of nesting in. And so the male comes in, you may see the male and you get all excited, and the females come along. And you think, here we go. They're gonna mate, and she's gonna stay in the yard nest. And what happens is the female decides that habitat around you is not good enough, and so they move on. And the male can only stick around so long, and then he has to move on to go to an area where he can find hopefully recruit more females. Well, a lot of what the females are doing right now, because they really become absent in a lot of areas for a little while, and that is just she does all the nest building, she does the egg laying, of course, and she does the incubation, and she raises the young. And so she is absent for periods of time. Now, really nice, warm, mild days, and she can venture off that nest. Of course, that leaves the babies and the eggs exposed. But then she can come feed, and of course she's going to have to, because the male doesn't bring her food, and so she does have to feed. But if it's really cool and wet or anything like that, she stays on that nest to protect the eggs and to protect the young and keep them warm. So right now, the advice I give people is for who lost their hummingbirds from the spring and all of a sudden now they don't have them is. And it's the same advice I give for people going on vacation that say, oh no, I don't have anybody can fill my hummingbird feeders and I'm worried about losing my hummingbirds. What I recommend is clean your hummingbird, the feeder up and out and put it back out empty. If you're going to be gone longer than 3 or 4 days, especially depending on temperatures, you don't want that nectar and sugar water going bad. And I recommend you take that and that hummingbird feeder. Sorry, I didn't realize that camera got bent there. It puts your hummingbird feeder out empty. That way, when that hummingbird comes along and he sticks his tongue into your feeder, he only, and I don't want to be too anthropomorphic here, but to him, it's just that flower has no nectar. And so he keeps going, he keeps moving, and he keeps feeding around. And he'll come by every so often and check your feeders like he does. And then when you get back, you put the nectar back in there. He goes, oh, it's got nectar now. So you tend not to lose them because with having that feeder. And of course, the best thing of all is if you've got flowers outside for them that he can feed on or she can feed on as well. And that, hanging baskets and things like that work just as well. But at landscaping, if you landscape well, then they should be happy while you're gone, and you can get your feeders back up as soon as you return, and again you'll keep going. But if you have no hummingbirds right now, and you're tired of changing the nectar every other day or every 3 days and keeping it fresh, and with nothing, no reward. The other thing is, I remember I'll say take that feeder down, put it back out empty. And then mark your calendar for the last week of July. And that's in my area. Remember, I'm here in Kansas City. You may be a little later up north, a little earlier down south. But put that on the last week of July for us is to put their hummingbird feeder back out, mix up fresh nectar, but a little bit, put it in there because the babies are starting to fledge and hit the feeders very hard. And that's when, the whole month of August and the whole month of September for us are the best hummingbird months. And when people say, oh, I had tons of hummingbirds last year, most people forget, I ask them when you had those and they start thinking. I said, I bet it was August, September that you had a ton. And they go, oh, it may have been that late, but that's the last thing that sticks with us from last year. The spring, you rarely have a ton of hummingbirds just because it's usually one male and he may have to have a few females around. And of course, you get a lot of chasing and things like that. So remember, the best hummingbird season is truly coming. If you got them coming right now, congratulations. You got them probably nesting all summer. Keep your feeder fresh and let them come. And here they come. Has anybody done, I'm just curious about this. Have you ever done the fruit fly trick for hummingbirds? And that is putting out a pan and they make a feeder for it. If they call it the humbug, but you put fruit, a bunch of fruit, old bananas, things like that in it, and you put the feeder that out and like at the edge of your woods or whatever. And so the fruit flies are attracted to that fruit, and you'll see those hummingbirds come along and snap those little fruit flies. They'll feed on. They also eat other insects as well and collect them. But fruit flies are perfect size for hummingbirds, and a lot of people do that trick during the nesting season to provide a source of food. Now, of course, depending upon where you have it hanging or posted, the raccoons can get to it and things like that. You'd be careful there. But providing a fruit source like that for them, and so the fruit flies proliferate, it can really help the hummingbirds out. So let's see. I don't know where I am. I'm way back here. Where's my producer?
Oh, go down. Go down.
Whoop, 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 whoop. So
somewhere in here.
Sorry.
Oh yeah, because there's the chickadee question. The next one was the Bewick's win. So down in here.
Okay. Yep. I remember the Bewick's win, crust and shari. Have a successful brood of bluebirds this year. Great. So I'm going to brag now. Lisa just opened it up for me. Okay. Some of you may have seen this on the community page. I posted this 2 days ago. I did my video earlier this spring about installing the Bluebird house, and this is that Bluebird house. That's that pole and raccoon baffle and everything. But I actually did not leave it installed that day when I shot that video. I actually took it back into my garage because that's right before we were leaving on our cruise on the vacation, and I did not want to be gone whenever I first put that Bluebird house out because I hadn't, in case I needed to battle the house sparrows. Well, I finally did put it out. What's today? Okay, so I put it out on Friday. It was Friday or Saturday. I put it out, and immediately the bluebirds were on top of the box. I took this picture yesterday or day before, and put it on the community page. And then this afternoon, I went out and I had to take a couple other pictures. And then I opened the box, and this was inside. So they've got a nest built. I looked in and I didn't see any eggs yet, but I walked away from the box and immediately they landed on the box again. So I love seeing that the bluebirds took to that nest almost immediately. And this is the second nesting. And most of you guys, like Kurt, you guys that have bluebird boxes, I've already fledged your first brood and already you're hatching your second batch of eggs. This is, I'm sure these birds nested somewhere else close to me because the first day that they landed on the box, the male and female were on top of the box, and then a baby bluebird flew up and landed on the box and started begging from both of them. And so he still hadn't gone on his way yet. And so, but now the last couple of days, I have not seen him up there with the parents. It's just the parents on there. So I'm excited about that. And this is a great picture sent in from a female, and this is classic. I always say it's safe to check your box like every 4 days. I don't like it doing that more than that, like once every 4 days. Some people check it more frequently, and I'm just afraid that that you're putting your human scent on that box and around that box repeatedly, and the more your scent is there, the more opportunity there is for raccoons to discover your scent, and for raccoons, human scent means food most of the time. And I've got raccoon baffle on that pole because I know I have raccoons that visit my deck every night, but I just don't like checking it too often. I think once every 4 days is pretty safe. And then write down, what the status of the nest is. And then, if I go back on 4 days from now and there are 4 eggs in there, I will know she'd laid 1 egg a day before she starts sitting, and sometimes the 5th egg in there. But I think that's just as safe to do. So, and this is an example of how safe it is to check the box. When I go up to the nest box, I usually talk to her and let her know I'm there. Maybe even tap on the side a little bit before I open the box. And the box has one side that open. It's got plexiglass, so I can see in there rather than disturbing her with the open box. But this is an example of what she does. A lot of times, a female, especially if it's a cooler day, she's not going to leave her eggs, and she just sits there and looks at you. I close the door back, and thank her for her time, and I leave and try not to bother her again. So, and there's a lot of that. I know, depending on where you are, you guys out east or down south, probably, well, if you haven't fledged your second batch, I bet you're darn close to it. Whereas you guys up north, you might be at just fledging your first batch or close to fledging your first batch. So, bluebirds are well into their nesting season. And I was asked yesterday about that, how many, and it was actually today, a customer were talking, and, around in our area, we expect 3 nest attempts a year. The spring attempt, the summer attempt, and the late summer attempt. So, and then last year, I know some people had 4 successful nests in the Kansas City region, and a lot of that can be driven by you providing live mealworms. It gives a good, dependable food source for these birds. And I know Kurt and Carrie were telling me that, the first nesting they had, parents were really going and getting the live mealworms. But the second nesting, when they've already got babies, they're hardly getting any mealworms at all from the mealworm feeder. So there's a lot of natural insects out there they're taking advantage of right now. And that can happen too. So bluebirds, hummingbirds and bluebirds, definitely always a topic here, and in a lot of interest. You want to get caught up? Do you know where we were?
Go back up just a little bit. Go back up. Okay, there's the chickadee. There's the beewicks. I think maybe here.
Oh, I saw Dak. John Moore like 10. Okay, got you. They're talking to each other.
Yeah.
Our mockingbirds, bluebirds, and minspurs love when I sprinkle mealworms and platform feeder. Yep. Mealworms as well. Yes, absolutely. The mealworms are a huge hit, especially this time of year, especially when they're feeding babies. My chickadees eat nonstop. They are feeding machines. They really are. And they're the snatch and grab kings too. Grab it and go. Any birds, oh my gosh, yeah, are going to have a bumper crop. Oh, all of the mimic thrushes just love them. So the mockingbirds, gray catbirds, the thrashers love them. Cedar waxwings, tons of birds eat the blackberries, much to the chagrin of people who are trying to grow the blackberries. For a lot of people have to take measures to try to scare tape and stuff on their vines to keep them from getting all of them. Have you ever went birding at Maggie Marsh in Ohio? I have not, Lisa. I know that's an outstanding place to go in there. I would really consider that. I know some of my friends have been there. Annette, who's sometimes on with us, she went maybe the last 2 years. I know she went this year, and lots of Kansas City people would go there for the best week of birding, they call it there. It's an amazing place. Like I said, the closest I've come to that was Presque Isle State Park in Pennsylvania, and it was very similar. The birds all come to the edge of the lake there, and they don't want to cross the lake, so they build up there, and you can get to see them really close and really low. It's an outstanding place. All right. That's a good question. I don't know that you can tell that. I mean, we've got birds like the albatrosses that, they're laying eggs in their 50s. It's incredible. But most songbirds only live, it depends, maybe 8, 9, 10 years, 12 years, sometimes smaller birds. But I don't know that they slow down. They really don't. They continue active. Lumber has been eating a lot. Clean out their feeder again, and I refilled the fresh. Absolutely, especially near rain. When it started, when the rain is coming, they really hit the nectar hard. That's for sure. Too fertile in this one. Excellent. Yep. We had a great crested flycatcher one year nest in a gas grill. We went to use the gas grill and lifted the lid. And there was this great crested flycatcher nest with 4 babies. And we didn't use the gas grill that night. All right. Good evening, Mark. What would you
Can I answer?
Melanie wants to
the
answer.
Chickadee.
Melanie considers the chickadee, and she's heard me say this many times over the year. Justin, what I always used to say to people when they would come in and buy a bird feeder for the first time, and I would tell them, I said, I'll make a bet. I bet the first bird that finds your new bird feeder, and no bird feeders at their house, first time ever putting out a bird feeder would be the black-capped chickadees. And now it's hard to do that with as many house sparrows as there are everywhere. But chickadees are very, very smart, and they're very, very bold, which of course comes into play here. A lot of times when you put up a bird feeder, other birds shy away from it, and they have to because they get to be very careful because they don't want to get eaten by other things. Well, the chickadees are almost always the first birds brave enough to come in, find the food, and fly off with it. And then the other birds see them do that a time or two, and they go, "Oh, must be okay," and they fly over and land on it, and then your bird feeder really gets rolling. But yes, Melanie, it gave the answer I would have given you, and that is the chickadees.
And the TikTok we have on chickadee being the smartest bird, is like the best viewing TikTok we've had.
Yeah, well, TikTok's really been growing for us, and one of our most popular TikToks is about chickadees being the smartest bird. Yeah, that's right. Hello from SoCal at Frontier. Welcome in. Yes, that's good. That's good. Those are all birds we really, really love. She's saying a little privacy, please. Yeah, that's true. Hi, Jan from Belton, just down the street here. The chickadees built moss nest. Yes, fledged. They cleaned out all the moss. What gift? They cleaned out the moss. That's very interesting. Yeah. Part of we really want you to clean out boxes just because you don't. If there was any kind of insect infestation in the nest that was there, and she tries to use that again, then it passes. Those insects will just, of course, take advantage and feed off of the babies of the next nesting. So it's always a good idea to clean it out. I wonder if the chickadees found that nest was infected with maybe feather lice or something. But that is a really good question. Or two periods in my feeder during early spring and don't see them much in summer. And when it comes to just like Kurt and Carrie were talking about, the bluebirds are not eating a lot of the mealworms with this second brood. I always talk about bird seed and bird feeders. During the harshest, coldest stretches of winter, your feeders are really, really busy, and then the first nice warm snap you get, all of a sudden your feeders are empty. Well, it's that they've been eating French fries every day, all day, for that stretch, and then the buffet lines opens. The stress goes down, snow melts, the temperatures are mild. They can take a little more time to find food, so they're taking advantage of the natural foods, and that's a lot what's going on with here. I think is that in the spring and summer with the natural insects being available. That's high energy food. And of course, they have to feed their babies insects. That's where they get calcium for the growing bones of the babies. So I think that's what's going on. You're competing against Mother Nature. All right. Finally got to catch a live from Spokane, Washington. Welcome in. Oh, gosh. That you're talking about dealing with a lot of sparrows. And we've got so many fledgling house finches that we don't know what to do. They're just wiping out my feeders, and this must be the year for the house finches or nesting success. That's for sure. Years ago, I always had a lot of house sparrows. Might occasionally see one. Why would they? Well, Zach, one of the theories, of course, is that house finches are out competing house sparrows in a lot of urban settings anymore. And that kind of would play out in my yard. It seems like I got a lot more house finches than I do house sparrows here. And I've just seen a steady increase in the number of house finches. Unfortunately, that goes for goldfinches too. The house finches really will dominate feeders. And I wonder if that's not what's going on there. I think there's data that tends to support that, where the house finch numbers are high, the house sparrow numbers tend to be lower. KC, really close to my patio. Big heron, great blue heron. I love it. Ellie always reminds me to talk about binoculars, guys, and how beneficial having a good pair of binoculars are. You will absolutely never regret a good pair of binoculars. I hadn't done a program on one for a while, and she keeps reminding me to do one. Well, here's something I wanted to throw out there tonight, because I keep seeing this I did a talk at a Rotary Club last Friday, and of course, this question came up, and I've seen it like, I don't know, 4 times probably on Facebook. This post keeps popping up about woodpeckers wrap their tongue around their brain to help them from cushion it. Okay. That statement has a little bit of truth and a whole lot of exaggeration to it to keep you the clickbait to get you going to read about the article. When I went in and read the article, what people were saying, they use a lot of vague terms in there. Now, this picture, this is a red shafted flicker, and look at the size of that tongue. That is enormous. And of course, this illustration below is of a flicker in its tongue. Whenever the statement says that woodpeckers wrap their tongues around their brains, it of course is ridiculous in itself. Now they do have very long tongues, especially flickers. Not all woodpeckers have really long tongues like this, and so that's that being a blanket statement in that post was misleading to begin with. But yes, they do they have to store that tongue somewhere, and as the illustration shows, is that the tongue, and I've talked about this, hummingbirds, same thing, guys, but hummingbirds don't hammer on trees, so it doesn't cushion their brains, right? Yeah. Okay, so they have a muscle in the back of their head. I'm going to turn sideways, and when the tongue's out, of course, the muscles are in their mouth, and then when it pulls that back, that muscle brings that tongue up on top of the skull, between the skin and the skull, not the brain. It doesn't go inside the skull. It's not around the brain, and it doesn't wrap around the brain like the post made you think that's what was happening. So most people don't read it. They just read this, and then they think, okay, the hummingbird's got his tongue wrapped around his brain. No, that's not how that works. But flickers have extremely long tongues, as you can see in this picture, and their tongue is so long that it comes all the way across their bill and the top of their head and actually to their nostrils. Now, and I used to say in the Nature Center world that the flicker can pick his nose with his own tongue from to get a laugh, of course. But hummingbirds do the same thing. They have to pull that tongue, and it goes in and out, in and out, in and out. Does it help cushion their brain? There was one study that I can find in which a professor believes that it does help cushion. Now, there's a lot of things that enable woodpeckers to hammer that hard without getting headaches, as people say, and not the least of which is their bottom bill is a little bit longer than their top bill. And so it absorbs most of the hammering in their jaw. That's, of course, the bottom jaw, and it can flex better than the top bill attached to its hard head. Even there are actually micro fissures in around the bill that helps absorb something. So there's lots of things that enable woodpeckers to drill like that. The tongue being on top of the head and the back of the head, cushioning it, I don't think there's a ton of data that helps you make that a real hard claim, but it could a little bit, but not the way that that post is going on. I'm sure probably you guys have seen it because I've had it forwarded to me by several people, and I thought I wanted to clear that up and make sure you know what's going on there. So then another thing I wanted to talk about tonight, of course, I always try to do a conservation message in there, and there's a couple things I wanted to mention here. And of course, I saw this post, this Chimney Swift tower that's being built here by the Audubon Society of Western Pennsylvania, where I used to work years ago, and this is in a park there in Pennsylvania, and McKeesport, I think, and Chimney Swifts are a heavily declining bird. They do nest in old wood chimneys, of course, and they're famous for that. And their nest with saliva and sticks, it sets up on the side of the inside of an old chimney. And of course, the inside of the chimney, old chimneys are brick, and they're really rough, and they can attach to that. But only one chimney swift is going to nest in one chimney. So there's famous videos of many chimney swifts going into a chimney. Those are in fall migration, in which there's several of them roosting in there, and then they fly out. But for a nest, folks, this on the right, this Chimney Swift tower is a nest box. For a chimney swift, that's what that serves as, because new chimneys that are built have a pipe running inside of them, and they don't have the rough sides like the old brick ones do, and they can't nest on the sides of those slick pipe, modern day chimneys. So of course they're losing lots of habitat, and there's a lot of people out there trying to help chimneys, and so I thought I would throw that in there. The Chimney Swift Society, you can look it up on the internet. And to help with plans if you're willing to try to do something like that. But again, that's a whole lot more involved than a Bluebird box. But that's what they require. They're in this kind of nesting situation. So Chimney Swifts, I thought I would throw that in there. They're a bird that people ask a lot of questions about. And yes, Chimney Swifts actually do eat mosquitoes. People think that purple martins eat mosquitoes. No. Purple martins hardly eat any mosquitoes, very few, little bit in their diets. But chimney swifts, which are pretty crepuscular, we call it, they're active in the mornings and in the evenings. And when the mosquitoes are very, very active, and they vacuum them up as they're flying around, and they always look like flying cigars. They look like a little cigar with little sickle wings flying around and twittering. And somebody pointed out yesterday, she said, I think I have been mistaking chimney swifts for bats for many years, and that is definitely possible. Same time of day, really fast, rapid wing beats they have, and so learn the chimney swift. I mean, they're terrific birds, and they are pretty widespread. So you see them, like I said, in the evenings a lot, and in the mornings and stuff, and they twitter around, and especially if you've got old chimneys, old houses versus new developments where they don't have anywhere to nest. So thought I would throw that in as kind of my conservation message tonight. And then one other thing I definitely wanted to put in here is bare dirt. How simple is that? This is a bare dirt patch that's near my Bluebird box out. And so I've been watching the Bluebird box more, that, and looking at that part of the yard. And by doing so, I've been watching this patch of bare dirt in our yard. And of course, we are the maintenance provided area now, and so they mow and they do everything. Well, I'm so thankful for this bare patch of dirt over here on the edge of the woods. I have seen multiple species utilizing it. The house sparrows are out there dust bathing in it and rubbing around. I watched a mother rabbit come out of the woods the other day and stopped there for a minute. She scratched around a bit and she hopped over, and then a baby rabbit came out behind her. And he sat in the middle of this patch of bare dirt, and he started rolling over like a dog, was scratching his back on that bare dirt and running. He was so cute. And I'm like grabbing him on my phone, trying to get it. Of course, I didn't get him on video because I thought that would have been really, really cute. And of course, the mourning doves are out there because they're picking up the little pieces of sand, grit, that because they keep that in their craw or their gizzard. And so when they swallow a bunch of seed and it stays there, that sand helps them grind up the seed that they're eating at your bird feeders. So little patches of bare dirt are okay. I know people who are are obsessed with the perfect lawn. They don't like a bare patch of dirt, but wildlife does. So if you have the opportunity to leave a bare patch of dirt or two, definitely do, because wildlife benefits from it. All right, let me see. Where were we?
I think it might be up. Did we talk about that one?
Let's see. So you have to build a nest, another box in my yard, about 50 feet from the first. Not sure what happened to the first. Yep, looks like even more balls. Okay, I got you. Yeah, it's something you never know, Jordan. Sometimes nest fails for different reasons, and a lot of species will just build a new nest right on top of it, or choose another location where they feel safer. It's hard to know. They like I said, they don't do things by accident, typically. That's for sure. Carolina wrens were a fixture. They disappeared for a few months. They're finally back. They're frequently seen or heard as the late 2020. Now, John, you're in Florida, right? So you don't, I know up here we had a really harsh January, February. We lost a lot of Carolina wrens, but down there I wouldn't suspect that. They may be shifting to areas that have more of what they're looking for during the nesting season. Birds will shift areas depending upon what they need at that time. sources of fruit, sources of insects, high insect production. Maybe somebody sprayed, their lawn and killed all the bugs, and then the birds have to shift to another area where they can find bugs and things like that. So again, that's a possibility. Still not getting notifications, at least not on YouTube. The bell is clicked all. I'm gonna let the wife look into that, Jim, and then I'm trying to get back to you.
And check the calendar on the store page to get the dates. And I'm trying to send out an email about videos, and it always says at the very end when the next live is.
Yep. Yeah, we are posting them on our calendar page on marksbackyardbirds.com, right? Yep. Yeah. And then the calendar page on there. And Melanie's trying to send out notifications via people who we have their contact information, a few days in advance. That's weird because you should be getting that with that bell clicked. I'm curious about wrens. Someone on Facebook said Carolina wrens attacked their bluebirds. Boy, I've never heard of that. I didn't think Taney were aggressive. Yeah, the southern house wrens. There's house now. I know northern house wrens, which are obviously the most common. The southern house wrens are way south. They're in southern Central America down south, so we don't have southern house wrens. But the northern house wrens are nasty. I've never known Carolina wrens. Now that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. I mean to tell you, and especially with limited nesting sites available, and Carolina wren may want that nest. That it may happen, but that's not something I'm real familiar with happening. I bet if you go on one of the Bluebird chat room sites, they probably documented everything on there in those sites. So you might have see about that. That's no problem with the typos. Yep, absolutely. We don't have a manicured lawn. We have a farmyard. Very good, Rick. I bet it's a whole lot better for the birds. Manicured lawns, not good for a whole lot of things wildlife wise. Dirt spa for my birds too. Good. Yeah, the dirt spa. Yes, they do love it. Much more campus. We've had one bluebird and one black-capped chicken nest so far. Excellent. All right. Good. Sandy, you got your notifications. Yeah, Melanie's going to do some research over here and see what we can figure out.
I'm going to post a link that kind of troubleshoots that. Something about, are your YouTube notifications turned on in your settings?
Are your Bluebird
are your YouTube notifications set on? It's a Google thing, so
okay.
I'm going to try to post it.
She's doing it. I have had wrens or sparrows attack. Now we know house sparrows are very famous, Anna, for attacking bluebirds. One of my longtime bluebird feeding customers came in the other day. She's had this pair of bluebirds in her nesting in her yard for 6 years, and just the other day, the house sparrows got in and pecked the female to death and all of the babies in the nest to death. Needless to say, she's going to wage war on the house sparrows. That's for sure. Lawrence's Goldfinch. Frontier, you're killing me, man. That's a lifer for me. I've never seen Lawrence's Goldfinch, and I've been down there several times. Yes, that's a good bird. Yeah, if you guys, the bird watchers, know what he's talking about down there in the Southwest, and I've had friends that go down there and only been down there. We took a walk in the park and found them immediately, and I've looked hard for them when I've been down there and never found them. They run my bluebirds away from their boxes. The house sparrows do, or do the Carolina? Now we're talking about Carolina wrens here. I don't know. Do they do that? Do they run your bluebirds off? Because I know that the house sparrows do it. All right, I can't keep my safflower feet. The little house finches are going crazy. Yes, I need a big. I know what you mean. There's so many baby house finches this year, and they are just consuming tubes of bird seed, especially my Nutrisaf and my medium sunflower kernels. The house finches are just nuts over it. Yep. Okay, I am going to do a little bit of a preview of a requested program that I'm going to be doing. It's going to probably be a good 20-25 minute program because there's a lot to cover in it. And it's my species profile for tonight. I usually like to do one per live. And Lisa, this is for you. You're the ones who requested this. She asked, would I do a program on the Vireos? This is, and so I, of course, as the mascot bird for the Vireo video that I'm going to be doing, the family focus, I call them, is the red-eyed Vireo. This and all my regular bird watchers that are on with me, they can spout the story for me. Carol, anybody want to join or tell me what's special about the red-eyed Vireo? I can wait. Now, for this bird, and I say it every spring whenever we're out and we hear the first one singing. This is the most common bird in the eastern deciduous forest. And as my talk always goes, it's a bird you've heard your whole life, but you have likely never seen. Did I leave my phone?
No, it's right here.
Oh wait, it's got my phone.
No, you plugged it in.
Oh, okay. So when you've been walking through the woods, and I usually mixed hardwoods or old hardwood forests, you've heard this bird singing your whole life, and you may have not ever seen it because
Carol.
Oh, here we go. Carol's going to join in. Most common bird in the eastern deciduous forest. I'm telling you, and usually every spring, whenever we hear our first one and I start talking, I'll say, okay, which one of you guys are going to tell the story? Give my speech. And so Carol is being volunteered to do that tonight. And for the other people, new people in the group, this is true. And they do have red eyes. Look, you can see that red iris on that bird. It has a gray cap, white line through the eye, but they're olive green on their backs, and they're off-white on their bellies. So, okay, from underneath, you're looking at a bird that is off-white against the sky. When he's hopping around the trees and the green leaves, he's got a greenish back. So they blend in really, really well. But they have certainly, you've heard it if you've ever taken a walk in the woods and to eat now. Not you guys out west, I apologize. And I'm going to talk about Western Vireos in my program too. But for the Eastern folks, this is a bird you have definitely heard your whole life. I'm going to play the song. Remember, I use Sibley's bird app. I love it. And then these are songs, and the songs are from the Cornell Lab for Ornithology. I want to make sure I got there. So let's see. Okay, the mnemonic that's associated with that is, look at me. Here I am over here. Look at me. Here I am over here. And it goes on and on and on. And once you learn that song and you go for a walk in the spring woods and the summer woods, you will hear that bird singing. And I know you guys are using Merlin a lot, and a Merlin will pick that up. Now, they've made improvements to Merlin because a couple of years ago, Merlin kept calling that bird a Philadelphia vireo. Well, Philadelphia vireos in this part of the country they're not rare, but they're very uncommon. And one of our favorite birding locations, there's just tons of red-eyed vireos out there. And the app a couple of years ago was saying 14 Philadelphia vireos, which is ridiculous. The red eyes were singing all over the place, but Merlin kept calling it Philadelphia vireo. So I've talked about how Merlin makes a mistake. That was a really prime example. But they tend to be slow moving birds. They're not, in my warbler program, we talked about how warblers bounce around all the time. Vireos tend to be more slow and methodical. And there are many species of them we're going to talk about in our program here. And within the next 2 weeks, I'll have it up and we'll do it. But the red-eyed vireo is such a common bird. And I've actually seen these guys sitting on a nest singing, literally singing. I mean, just while sitting on the nest. And, we assume it's the male, and then they take turns incubating. So, but they're just wonderful birds. And they sing so much. And I've seen them multiple times in my life, glean a caterpillar off of a leaf or off of a limb and sit there and swallow it. And the entire time while it's swallowing this big caterpillar, he's singing. He's just singing away, and he doesn't even interrupt him whenever he's swallowing the. They can do that because of their syrinx instead of a larynx, so they can keep singing and swallow food at the same time. So I guess it gets mom's rule: don't eat and chew talking the same foot time. But these guys can do it. All right. You're welcome. It's a great group of birds, and like I said, I'm sorry I haven't done one before now.
So that's coming up.
That's coming up within the next 2 weeks. Yep. I haven't got the exact day which one I'm going to do it yet. But all right, let's see. Okay. No, that's Melanie.
That's me telling them what they said on Google.
I see the hunting activity of Cooper's hawks and red tails, and what surprises me is how often they aren't successful. Absolutely, it is. People talk about, especially like Cooper's hawks and things in their yard, and being scared of them. But I often say, have you seen how many times they miss? Yeah, it is hard work. If they caught every time they hunted, or every time they tried, but they don't. Especially young hawks, they miss a lot. Hello, Seth White. Well, let's see. I see a northern flicker would nest in the box. I also see a pair of pileated woodpeckers, and both of those will use nest boxes, Marty, but they're so good at drilling their own cavities. But when people cut down dead trees and cut dead limbs off of trees, and the reduction in their nesting holes available to them, they will use an artificial cavity. Unfortunately, squirrels love them too, so that's their biggest competition. So
that was
all right. That's Lisa. All right. I hope one day you will lead a bird hike here in Southern California. I haven't been there in a while, a Frontier, but if I'm ever coming down there, taking a bird group, and I know my people are really trying to talk me into starting my bird tours again, my distant tours like that. I'll let people know we're going to be in an area in Southern California. I love San Diego County. Like I said, I love birding there. Some great places to go. We get a lot of great stuff when we go down there. So yes, that would be fun. Warbling vireo is much more common here in the north central Illinois. Yes, warbling vireos are very common birds. That's right, especially in kind of wet areas. Sandy, I don't know about there, but we get a lot. We get them real. They're very common along riparian corridors. Yeah, I heard somewhere that hawks are only. That's about right. I believe that at 15% of the time. That sounds right. Remember to hit the thumbs up. Yes, thank you, Ellie. All right, you guys have been wonderful. Time for us to wind down. My one last thing I wanted to do, because people ask all the time about my books, and they say, "Would you talk more about the books behind you and around you?" Well, I take one at a time. I've talked about the Sand County Almanac by Aldo Leopold and a couple of others. The one I thought I would put out tonight is Kingbird Highway by Kenn Kaufman. I don't know if you've ever read this book. This is I'm going to geared more to bird watchers, more so than bird feeding people. But Kingbird Highway is a fantastic book. It's an incredible story of Kenn Kaufman, who took off hitchhiking and across the country, determined to set the record for seeing the most birds in a single year and not have a car and not good. And so it's an incredible story about how he got started. He's now, major published author. The famous story with Kenn is that he wrote the great Roger Tory Peterson a pretty lengthy letter one time and said, here are the birds you got wrong in your field guide. And he went into detail of it. So of course, Peterson met him and they talked. They said, how about you write me a book? And he wrote the Guide to Advanced Birding about difficult identifications in bird watching, like the Impedinax flycatchers and several shorebirds and things like that. And it was a huge success. And now he's got tons of field guides that, not just birds, but butterflies and trees, different things Kenn's done on his own. And he's a great person. And he's really good friends with a friend of mine, Mark Robbins over at KU. I talk about him every so often. And he and Kenn were part of what's known as the Tucson Five. They were all at the University of Arizona at Tucson. And they were some of the greatest bird watchers that have ever walked the planet, and that they now are all very, very influential. Unfortunately, Ted Parker passed away in a plane crash several years ago, and he was one of that group, and probably the greatest field bird watchers ever lived. So, story, Kingbird Highway, wonderful read.
And there's the link,
Yep.
And when they go to it, it's a different cover.
Yeah, Melanie put this link up. And of course, it's an affiliate link for us. So hopefully, if you buy it, we get a little teeny little point percentage of it, whatever. But it has a different cover. Mine's an older copy and it's signed. Kenn was here a few years ago and speaking and had dinner with him, and he signed our copy, and I really enjoyed my time with him. So, and then one other thing. Dun, da, da, da. We've seen the Mark's Bird Nerd t-shirts. We've got Mark's Bird Nerd stickers.
And it's supposed to be waterproof, so you could put it on your car window.
You hear that? It's supposed to be waterproof, so they can do it because a window sticker. They're transparent to put on your windows. So for those of you who buy stuff on the online store, look for these to be included with your order here soon, possibly. And then I think Melanie's going to have them for sale at some point, but we just got these in today, so just thought we'd show you that. So, all right, let's see. Just say goodnight to people here. Yep. Thank you so much. Oh, Marilee, if you've read the book, I know you like it. He's a really good writer, and he's just a great guy. Here in the woods, but never see the woodpecker. Oh, my favorite bird song, Laura, for sure. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you for joining in. It was safe and right. You too. God bless you. Mariana, all right. The storm is coming. They hunker down. They find really thick bushes. They get under decks. They know the barometric pressure is changing, so they do to take cover and get somewhere out of the. People see them, inside of like a grapevine wreath on their door. Different places they can just get out of the elements. They believe me. They know it's coming. Kenn has a month. Oh, okay. I haven't seen Birds in Bloom in a long time, Bill. I'm glad you said that. He is a well-published author. That's for sure. You're welcome, Rooster. Appreciate you joining in, guys. Thanks so much. Thank you, Jan. You guys will be on again live in a couple of weeks. Go look for videos on there. Thank you for the support. Remember, give us a like, give us a share. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. Until next time, let's talk birds.